Welcome to Defy the Odds Basketball, the podcast. I'm your host, Wyatt Guerin, and welcome to the podcast. This is our very first episode. Thanks for joining us. A bit about me before we get into it and about the business and kind of the backstory. So Defy the Odds Basketball is my basketball training brand that I started about 2 years ago. We're located in Owen Sound, Ontario, which is in Canada. And the goal of the business is to really grow the basketball culture in smaller areas. So our area is relatively small, not much basketball in the area. So the whole idea behind it is giving kids the opportunity to grow as players and as people, and give them the opportunity to play at the higher level. With that, we're also setting our aim for even higher too. So for the future, scaling the business. And part of that is starting here with the podcast. So kind of the goal with the podcast is to continue providing resources for athletes to grow, but it's also being used as a tool to kind of challenge the normal basketball training landscape, challenging it a bit and trying to help grow it. And we'll get into that a bit more later on. But yeah, so mostly how these episodes will be structured. I want to try and keep them pretty free, so not too scripted, just kind of just talking about some topics and relating them to experiences from my playing career, as well as my experiences training athletes. We'll split episodes up between short and lengthier episodes, depending on what the topic is, depending on how much there is. We might split it into multiple parts as well. And then the only other thing before we get into it is just I do have some ideas for podcast topics moving forward, but if there's anything specific that you think would be good to go over, or other people would like to hear, make sure to reach out and let me know your ideas. And again, the podcast is focused mostly for players and how giving them advice, tools, practical ways to improve, on the court, off the court, their mindset, how to improve their training by themselves, stuff like that. But it's also, I think, for coaches, other trainers to listen to, and again, challenge the way we kind of approach basketball training and see if we can work on evolving it and seeing where it can go. So, topic for today is failure. I thought this was a good topic to start with because of starting the podcast. First episode of the podcast, why not talk about failure? I mean, for all we know, this podcast could be a complete, utter failure, right? So I thought it'd be a good way to open up and start the podcast. So, failure. We'll kind of get into more of the general stuff, and then I'll kind of talk about more of it applied to basketball after. I think the background here, is why I think it's so important to talk about, is because I feel like athletes and basketball players in this scenario specifically, most of the athletes I've worked with have such a bad relationship with failure, and I think it's because of how failure is perceived. So if we look at the textbook definition, like if you look up what is failure, you're going to see something along the lines of lack of success. And if you look up what success is, it is along the lines of the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. So for an example, my goal was to play college basketball and I didn't, according to the textbook, that is a failure. Okay, so hold on to that idea for later because I'll tie it back to that. Now, why I think failure is not irrelevant but almost identified is because people look at failure as the last stop, like a dead end. You hit failure, it's over. You're done. Whatever. Go home, pack up. Instead, I think failure needs to be looked at as a building block, as one of not the dead end, maybe a wrong turn. For example, some famous examples here. Michael Jordan, cut from high school team. J.K. Rowling had Harry Potter rejected multiple times before someone took a chance on it. Oprah Winfrey, fired from her first TV job. Steve Jobs was fired from the company he created. And then when he returned, he was part of the innovation of iPod, iPhone, iPad. Walt Disney was fired from one of his first animation jobs. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 experiments before inventing the light bulb. So all these famous people have something in common, and it's that they failed before they succeeded. So again, not failed and then quit, right? Instead, they realized they took the wrong turn maybe, instead of hitting the dead end. And it was a building block to help them end up getting to that success. So again, failure, I think, has this bad perception of it happens, it's done, right? Edison had 1,000 experiments failed, and the 1,001st was the light bulb. A couple more things on that topic. So Denzel Washington, famous actor, he has this famous video of him presenting a speech to the graduating class of, I think, the University of Pennsylvania in like 2011. If you want, look up the video. If you need some motivation, it's a great video to watch. But some quotes from that I picked out, right? Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. Fall forward. So that one's like saying, when you fall, so fail, use it as a stepping stone, right? Don't let it hold you back almost, right? So you're falling forward. I think my favorite one from his video is, if you don't fail, you're not even trying. So we'll talk about that real quick, because I think that's a common problem as well. Kids are so, and not just kids, like everybody, right, is so afraid of failing, of letting somebody down. Even if that's not the case, even if that's just kind of a perception, an idea they have in their head of what's going to happen, right? That they shy away from things that maybe they like, that they love doing, or they never give it 100%, because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to say, well, I don't know if I would have made the basketball team because I didn't even try. So I got cut, and you made it. Well, you actually tried playing basketball, right? You can start using excuses for when you fail, even if that failure inside is like, oh man, I really wish I made the team. But if you don't try, right, you're never gonna reach that goal of yours. So, and kind of bringing that together, Nelson Mandela had, and this is from the Denzel Washington video. He said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." And I think that's a super powerful quote in the terms of talking about failure, right? You have potential. Everyone has potential. No one is ahead of, you can say whatever you want. People might be ahead, people might be behind, but there's no limits on how far you can go, right? The only limit is your mind. It comes down to that. Now, do all successful people fail? Maybe not. Maybe their dad handed them their company or whatever, right? But now you will see more likely with those people, when they fail, it's really dead end because they don't have the skills to bounce back, right? The son gets handed the company from the dad. He fails first year running it. You probably won't see that company again, right? Now, maybe not all the time, but they don't have those skills to be able to bounce back, right? But so failure happens to get to the success, like a building block. Now, when we think about all these famous people that failed in their past life, or not past life, but in the past, we don't think about them as the failure, right? We don't see all that. We see the success. We see how easy it is, and this is actually part of kind of social media. And I laugh because I'm taking a course and we talk about this, and I'm doing like a paper on it right now. But social media feeds you these social norms of success and of these lifestyles of these famous successful people that you see, and you're like, oh, that's what I want. Like, I want to have that life. And they do this on purpose, right? It's creating a false, distorted reality. So you don't actually see how they got there. You don't actually see that their life's not all sunshine and rainbows. You see the movie of it, right? Like the storybook ending, kind of, you could say. But you don't see how they got there, what they went through, their struggles. You never see that part. And I think that's another reason for why people have such a bad relationship with failure. So we've kind of talked about the backstory here of failure and what it is and why it's kind of commonly misjudged, right? I would say. So let's kind of get into why, or let's kind of connect all of this into more basketball specifics. And I'm going to, for most of this part, I'm going to use some examples from my playing career as well as my experience training athletes and seeing it firsthand. So first part, I talked about kind of at the start, how, I'm starting the podcast for the first time. I've been running this business for 2 years now, but how did that really start? So I played basketball, surprise, surprise, for, 5 years. And my goal was always to play at the next level, right? Play college either in Canada or in the States. And I worked super, super hard for that. And at the end, I decided, I think it was like when I was in grade 12, I decided to give up, I decided to give up the hopes of playing college basketball for the opportunity to start this new path in my life of basketball training. And so I know I kind of talked about this at the start, like the excuse of quitting before and then saying, well, I would never know. Honestly, I don't know if I would have made a university team, right? I could be like, oh, if I kept trying and stuff, whatever. But, and I'm going to kind of change the idea here. So I quit. So I gave up 5 years of basketball, right? Where I was training in the gym, right? Like, think about all those hours I lost, technically, right? To not even finish pursuing that dream. But I ended up finding something like that I love, right? Like that I could see myself doing for a long time. I could look back on all that time of playing and be like, oh man, what a waste of time. And in the sense that is a failure, right? It never amounted to anything. It was a bunch of wasted time, energy, money, resources, driving, right? Like I had to drive 2 hours just to practice. Or I could look at it like, without that, I wouldn't be here where I am today doing what I love, right? So again, it wasn't a dead end. Even if I didn't make, say if I went through and, tried to make a college team, like I saw it out to the end. So like half a year longer, but I saw it out to the end and then I didn't make it. Again, that's still not a failure because then still I might have found this pathway of going into basketball training or gone into school, which I still currently am. But if I didn't have the basketball training, I might have been like, okay, I want to go become a physiotherapist, which was one of my goals. Again, now it's the basketball training, but still, right? So it was never a failure in sports itself, like I might not have made it to the next level if I finished that pursuit, but I learned a lot of lessons, a lot of skills, a lot of characteristics, a lot of values, beliefs through playing basketball at a high level and meeting tons of different people, and just from like the work ethic itself, right? The discipline, all that was built into it. So that's kind of a bit about how that ties into my background. I also want to talk about kind of what I've seen with athletes and where I feel like the failure comes in, like this bad relationship with failure athletes develop. Because the other thing with failure, I think another common misconception in sports, like in basketball training, I'll talk about specifically, you see a lot of people, basketball trainers, coaches, kids, because I think the kids develop all of these ideas from what they see on social media or what coaches tell them. But people think that learning and growth is a linear process. So just like if you had a graph, it's just with time on the bottom and like improvement or performance on the side, right? You would think the more time you put in, the more performance, right? And it goes in a straight line, right? But that's not the case. It's maybe when you're like just starting out, like when you just picked up the basketball, maybe. But afterwards, it's random. Like you can have an increase and then a decrease and then back up to where you were, and then it can just go like a plateau where it just kind of doesn't move for a bit and then go back like a spike up, and right, it's random, right? Now again, time helps, but it's still not just a perfect, you spend 2 hours, okay, you're going to increase by this much, right? That's not how it works. And I think that's an idea that's been passed down through generations of basketball trainers and coaches and passed on to kids, and then they coach that, and that's what coaches and trainers expect to see in their practices or workouts with their athletes. And then when it's not, right, then they see the realization, the realistic trend of the up, down, plateau, flat line. They're like, oh, what's going on? And then they, will probably blame the athlete, make the athlete feel bad, say that you gotta pick it up. And then that's where that conception of failure is bad, right? Kids start to think that they need to succeed. They need to, well, not succeed, but they need to be perfect, right? There's no such thing as perfect. Perfect does not exist. But that's what they believe. They believe that they can't miss a shot. They can't make a mistake. And what does that do? 1, it holds them back from their full potential. 2, it destroys their mindset. 3, it actually might make them quit basketball because of their relationship with it, right? Like when I was training, I had those thoughts from social media, and we'll get into that in a bit, but also from the coach I was some of the coaches I've had, where it's, if you make a mistake, you're on the bench. If you miss a shot, you're on the bench, right? Even if you are in the right, like if you miss a defensive assignment, even though you're like, oh, well, the guy in the corner was wide open, so I went to help him, take him, and then somebody rotated to my guy. Even if that happens, it's still, no, you're in the wrong, and then that can negatively affect you, right? Quickly on that social media point, I think that's another thing that affects, again, that mindset athletes' relationship with failure. And what I mean by the social media part is you see influencers or coaches or trainers that, look legit, saying, oh, you got to make this X many shots a day if you want to go pro, right? Or you got to make 70% of your shots in training to go pro, to be at the next level. And then kids go into their training at such a low, they're not even, you can't even compare the two levels yet. And they think when they miss 4 out of 10 shots, oh my God, I'm not going to the next level. But they don't understand that they still have to work, right? And it's one thing being able to shoot 70% in practice, but it's also about, can you do it in a game? You could shoot 10 for 10 for all I care in practice, but you might go 0 for 10 in a game because the game has defense, pressure, so many other variables that aren't in practice. And there's actually an optimal range for improvement in practice. So if you are around 50% success, that's where you should be, because that means you're being challenged enough, and that's the optimal zone of improvement, plus or minus a bit, but around 50%. But these coaches they know that stuff. They kind of just say these things, get in the heads of athletes. Athletes see it, they believe it, and it's not on them, it's not their fault. But then they go into practice with this idea, miss a couple of shots. Oh, well, I'm not good enough, right? Obviously, work towards that. I wouldn't say work towards being able to make 70% of shots in practice. I would say you work towards in-game goals. Like when I was training, I was never a guy that would shoot like a high percentage in training. Now that might be because I was always maybe being challenged, right? But when I got into a game and I shot from 3, like I shot at pretty high efficiency throughout my career, even though I probably didn't shoot much better in practice. If you took all my shots in practice combined and looked at the percentage, it probably wasn't much better than my in-game percentage, average-wise. So it's important to be careful what you're looking at, because again, these ideas that you see, that is what kind of builds into this conception or mistaken look at what failure is, and this actually ends up holding athletes back like significantly. One, they're scared of trying new things. 2, they're scared of what people might think. 3, they just don't want to try. Like right? Like you give them a difficult task, and it's like, oh, well, I missed a shot. I just want to go home. Or another thing is, it just completely destroys their mindset. Either in the sense of like they get super mad, right? Like they miss a shot and they're like, oh God, and like they're almost having I don't even know, like just an outrage. Or on the other flip side, they just get super down on themselves. Like you can see it, like shoulders down, like head down, like a slouch, a frown. And as a trainer and like a coach coming up here in the summer for my AAU team, it's super like hard to watch, because I was always in that position too, where that's what I believed, right? And it destroyed my mindset. Like overthinking happened, anxiety, right? Because of these coaches, trainers, social media influence, like just getting in my head, right? And then it happens, like that. It takes place, like what you see, and then start to think it. You like manifest it into reality. That's why mindset and like reassuring thoughts we'll get into that in another episode, but like why telling yourself stuff, like positive things, you can manifest that. But again, I'm just getting a bit too ahead of myself here. But back to the idea of failure. And again, and it's hard, like as a trainer, like working with some of these guys during the summer, trying to help them out of this, because it becomes a habit, right? Like it becomes like their mindset. I'm not saying any of my athletes were like significantly like this, but you can definitely see it. But, by the time they start working with me, they're like, oh my God, because I also never get mad at them for failing, right? They mess up. I'm okay with that, right? Like they make a mistake. I love it, right? Like let's make mistakes together, right? Like let's figure things out. Let's get out of our comfort zones, right? It doesn't have to be perfect textbook. That's not basketball is a chaotic game. Just like a game like soccer. Like there is no textbook things, right? So it's important to help these athletes get out of that state of mind. So I think that kind of covers everything. But to finish it, because I don't want to go, I was kind of going on some tangents there into some future episodes. So to finish it off, I'll give you guys some coaches and trainers and athletes some practical tools that you guys can use to, for athletes to help kind of, fix your relationship with failure, and for parents too, I guess, but coaches and trainers to how you can kind of help your athletes do this. So we'll start with the athletes, because I think that's who's mostly going to be listening. So for athletes, some things are, one, I would say it's just fail more often. So, and what I mean is like do more difficult things, right? Just like your basketball game, your shot, your handles, anything like that. Your mind has to be trained like that. So do difficult things. So, if you journal every day, write in your journal at the start of the day what difficult task you're going to set yourself for today. That could be talking to somebody you don't know, right? So if you struggle socially, talking to somebody you don't know. If it's basketball, maybe you're going to try a more difficult workout, right? Find stuff that challenges you. If you don't fail, that's fine, as long as it's challenging. And then other thing is find more positive resources online. So don't just look at every coach or every trainer that comes up onto your feed and take their thing to heart. Like I remember playing and I'd be like, oh my God, do this workout if you want to get to D1, do this workout. If you want to tighten your handles, do this 15-minute. Bro, stop all that, right? So find coaches and trainers that are spreading the right message and not trying to get like these almost like scams, like these, oh yeah, do this 15-minute, right? Like if you want to play at the next level, do this workout, right? Do this workout every day if you want to, like those kind of trainers, right? Like the clickbait, I don't know, that you probably understand what I mean, but find the trainers that you can trust and are spreading the right message and are more modern. So what I mean by modern is like there's modern coaches out there that are using better coaching methods, and again, future episode. But then you have like the old school coaches. It's like if you make a mistake, it's like on the line. Like if you miss a shot, it's like on the line. Suicides, right? Try and again find the coaches that aren't like that, right? Aren't like the old heads, because again, that's I think comes again like you miss a shot in practice, and coach is like, okay, everybody on the line. You know that instills fear of failure. Right? Even though missing is part of the process of learning, right? You have to, fail or mess up and miss to be able to succeed, right? You have to go through that process like we talked about. So again, find those resources. And if you're here right now listening to this, I think you're in a good place. But again, find what works for you. So those are a couple of things for players. Now, if you are a coach or trainer listening to this, I think one of the best ways, well, again, same thing, like find those modern coaches, trainers, learn from them, learn these new techniques. And I think the biggest thing for new coaches is, one, be more of a friend and a mentor to these athletes. Two, stop punishing them for missing a shot or anything like that, or making them feel like failure isn't like good, right? Make an environment where failure is supported, where it's encouraged, where you help these athletes build through that. All right. So I'll leave it kind of there. And then just to end it, I feel like this kind of sums it up. So I feel that success is determined by one's willingness to accept failure and change their perspective in relationship of it. Right? So when we see all these successful people, right, they were willing to fail. They might not have been aware of that, but it shows through their actions, right? They failed. They went through maybe rough patches, but they ended up maybe not at their imagined end goal, but they ended up succeeding, right? Usually in the right area, right? Like they're right, like J.K. Rowling got the books, right? She eventually got her goal, or Steve Jobs with the iPod. So it was all in the same field, right? But maybe not in this exact intention, right? And I'll give you one more example before we finish. I really like this from this book I'm currently reading. So Pixar, we all hopefully know what Pixar is. Famous like movie company. So they were kind of a small company when they started, and one of like the co-founders, kind of head guys at Pixar said, when their movies like are first made, he said they suck, like they are horrible. And like more of a specific example of that is is Up, like the movie Up. He said from like the first, they had to redo the whole thing because it was so bad, and the only thing that stayed the same was the title. So, and now that movie is pretty successful, right? And they do this through exercises where they have like a bunch of directors come together, executives, creative people. They watch the movie, and then they say everything that was bad, and they rip it apart. Like they go, like they could, all in this goal of trying to make it better, right? Give them ideas to make it better, right? And then by the time they produce it, most of the time they're like box office hits, right? So they go through this process of failure and hard truths. Right? I think and that's kind of funny because like these older coaching styles where it's like hard, create like their whole purpose is to make athletes not soft, not right, like tough. But I think subconsciously they're actually destroying athletes' mindsets, making them softer than they maybe were to begin with. Maybe not it might not be visible, right? Like obvious, but it's there. But when you approach them with the kind of mindset I was talking about with my training, where I'm like supporting them, not getting mad at them for missing one shot, they're actually building mental toughness because they are building now a healthy relationship with failure. So again, I feel success is determined by one's willingness to accept failure and work through it and change their perspective and relationship with failure. So I'll leave you with one thing. And the final thing is this. So my final question to you is, if you want to succeed, are you ready to accept failure and go through the hard times to get to the good times? If so, you're in a good place. If not, either we got to work on that, and you got to work on that, or again, we can go back to Nelson Mandela's quote. There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. So I'll leave it there. Again, thank you for tuning in for the first ever episode of the Defy the Odds Basketball, the podcast. If you have any ideas about like what you want me to talk about in the future, please just let me know and I'll be happy to cover them. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Defy the Odds Basketball, the podcast. If you do enjoy the podcast, make sure to give it a follow and check out our other episodes. If you're interested in seeing more content like this, then make sure to follow us on Instagram at Defy the Odds Basketball. We'll see you in the next episode.